A progressive woman once told me that if she was my wife, she'd poison my coffee. I told her if I was her husband, I'd drink it. This is Alan Bordius, host of Their Finest Hour, Monday nights here on Vigilant Liberty Radio.
At Independent Journal Review, we publish news that is objective, fair, and entertaining. As one of the top websites in the United States, it's our duty to bring the absolute best to our readers like you. IJReview.com, your number one source for news and entertainment.
Hey, this is Alfonso Rachel with 20 Pound Sledge and PJTV Zone Nation, and you're listening to VLR.
Hi, I'm Dustin Hoyt with America Our Way, and you can hear me right here on Vigilant Liberty Radio at 10/9 Central on Thursday nights. We bring you the best in political commentary from the right-wing, conservative, libertarian perspectives coming together and bringing the best content on the internet. Be sure to tune in every week for your favorite shows. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter.
Hi, this is Taylor, and while you're listening to all the other great shows here on Vigilant Liberty Radio, be sure to check out my show on Saturday nights called Saturday Night Cigar Lounge. You never know what we're going to talk about. It's always a fun time. That's Saturday Night Cigar Lounge, Saturday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central, here on Vigilant Liberty Radio.
At Independent Journal Review, we publish news that is objective, fair, and entertaining. As one of the top websites in the United States, it's our duty to bring the absolute best to our readers like you. IJReview.com, your number one source for news and entertainment.
Welcome back to the show. This is the Right Mics with Mike Miller and Michael Hausum. Just off the air, we were discussing with our upcoming guest here, Mark Tapson, about what he is doing to celebrate Kwanzaa. And we'll just let him kind of talk about that maybe later on. We've got a few topics we want to get with him. But he's got some very interesting how to celebrate Kwanzaa with your family ideas. And I know Mike is rapidly writing down notes from what Mark had to say. Anyway, Mark, welcome to the show, man.
Glad to be here.
Hey, Mark.
Hey, guys.
So, it's interesting, man. Your website is one that is bookmarked for me, and it's like every other day or so you put something up that kind of has its finger right on the pulse of either the international scene or the culture. And I've kind of gone back and forth between the ones that are the most interesting here to me. But we were just talking about in New York City, obviously that incredibly serious topic there with those two police officers. So keeping serious, I do want to get to the Chris Rock one. Interesting perspective you had here. The picture being that Lindt Christmas, that Lindt candy store in Australia. The title of your article, Has the West Lost the Will to Live? What are you saying here, Mark?
Well, I kind of spun off of that Sydney hostage crisis situation from a week or so ago to look at the bigger picture about our response in Western culture, America and Europe and Australia and Israel, our response to terrorism, to Islamic terrorism specifically, since that's really obviously the big issue. What started it for me was what the Australian Prime Minister said in the wake, or I think it was actually during the hostage crisis. He said that the whole point of politically motivated violence, which is what terrorism is to scare people out of being themselves. And so Australians should go about their daily business as usual. Otherwise, the terrorists win. It was that kind of a message. And, that's kind of an expected thing for a politician to say, trying to keep people calm and all that. But it's a message that you hear over and over again from politicians, and that's business as usual in the face of terrorism. Don't let the terrorists have the satisfaction of actually terrorizing us. Carry on with your day-to-day life, that sort of thing. And I'd also read a couple of other pieces. There was another writer who wrote a column for an Israel news site in which he questioned this whole attitude of kind of proudly taking terrorism in stride. And he said, is this a case of, well, in this instance, Israelis proving that nothing can stop them, or is it a case of Israelis just accepting their fate? And how will the terrorism and when will it end? When no matter what happens, everything just goes back to normal. So my point was that really the time for business as usual is over. Whether or not we want to admit it to ourselves, it's very self-delusional to think that the terrorists are not changing us. To just try to pretend, try to hold our head up proudly and pretend that they're not winning is terribly self-delusional. They are winning, and they have changed us, and part of the reason is because we are simply carrying on with this business-as-usual attitude instead of getting in touch with what I call a sort of a cultural rage and striking back. The only victory that there can be over terrorism is to bring it to an end. Living with it should not be an option. Now that's all easier said than done, and I don't go into detail about how we can, how we can do this or how long it will take. But I think the first step is to refuse to accept it, to refuse to live with it, and do what it takes to assert our cultural primacy.
Hey, Mark, and to your exact point, it is delusional to believe, excuse me, that terrorism has not changed us. Now, I think we can even see it in the Sony hack. Not only did, and again, this is North Korea, but it's all, at the end of the day, it's all part and parcel of the same stuff. Not only did Sony cave, but you go to the theaters. I mean, the theaters genuinely felt and believed that that they're going to be bombed by North Korea, of all people. I mean, you got this little nut job running around there. I mean, there's no way that could happen. But if we would have thought just, I don't know how many years back, that some nut job in North Korea threatens an American movie studio and theaters bail like crazy, we would have thought that's nuts. But we have definitely been changed as a society.
Yeah, and we live, we live with this sort of an expectation, sort of under, in the back of our minds, that the terrorists could reach us anywhere at any time. I mean, if you look at what's going on in Europe, more often in Europe and in Israel, but it will gradually, and now in Sydney, but it will gradually happen here more and more often, and that will become our new normal. And I'm talking about instances of low-level, quote-unquote, lone wolf terrorists striking us, as this guy did in Sydney, anywhere that we carry out our day-to-day business, whether it's a market or a movie theater, as you put it, or a mall or a synagogue or a school, anywhere. We now live with this expectation that, maybe not the daily anticipation of it, but it kind of sits in our consciousness, this possibility that that sooner or later that these kinds of acts are going to happen here. They're already happening, actually. I mean, the shooting of the two cops. A lot of people want to link that to the protests about the supposedly racist cops, but the killer was Muslim, and had, on his Facebook page had violent quotations from the Quran, and that sort of a thing. So I mean, these kinds of acts we're going to see more and more often, and it's going to become, as I said in my article, the new normal. We can't.
It's the same thing with the beheading of the woman. You remember out Oklahoma or somewhere, the woman at the workplace. That guy was radicalized by himself, but the same
all the
thing.
Way back to the Fort Hood shooting, and then the other shooting, the shooting of the 2 Arkansas soldiers at approximately the same time, which got sort of swept under the carpet. It's happened a number of times here on our own soil, and it's something that we're gradually just going to learn to live with, unless we get a grip, unless we show not only the will to survive as a culture, but the will to win, and the will to power, as Nietzsche would have called it, the will to sort of assert our culture and defend it regardless of what it takes and what it costs.
Yeah, here's my concern about. I mean, I hear what you're saying, and I think your point is spot on and well made, and I think it's absolutely correct. The conclusion line that you put in here, the future will belong to the lions, not the lambs. Mark, there's a significant part of our culture right now. And I'm actually looking on Facebook right now at a guy's post about something related to this. And he's saying that this is a consequence of America, essentially putting it into the terms that you used here. It's a result of American culture and American individuals being too lionistic as it is. And if we were more lamb-like, this wouldn't happen. I see that, and my thought is, okay, you know what? The one thing that communicated weakness does is it encourages and engages and makes for hopeful tyrants and violence in response. But there's a big chunk of the country, man, that's going to see a comment that the future will belong to the lions and not the lambs. They'll immediately add in, unless we can effectively all become lambs together.
Well, that would be great. I mean, that's certainly a wonderful utopian dream that one day the lions will lie down with the lamb, sort of a thing. But until that happens, we have to assert ourselves. As Bin Laden used to put it, when you have a strong horse and you have a weak horse, people are naturally attracted to the strong horse. There's another Arab saying that goes, "A falling camel attracts many knives." And I think what our enemies around the world see is that America is a falling camel. If everyone wants to sing Kumbaya together and hold hands around the campfire, that's great. But until we reach that sort of utopian dream, we better be prepared to fight for our culture and to assert ourselves over cultures that have determined to destroy ours, and otherwise we're just going to die with dignity, which is no victory at all.
So So what I think I hear you saying, I'm not the sharpest crayon in the box, is Barack Obama's suggestion as he was running for president that if we just be nice to people, if we just treat people with respect, if we run around the world and apologize to everyone and bow, that didn't work out so well. Is that what I think I'm hearing you saying?
Yes, I think everybody can see pretty clearly that has not worked out well. We over the last 6 years, Obama's apology tours and his attempts to appease tyrants around the world, they have not won us any friends. In fact, all he's done is alienated our allies and emboldened and empowered our enemies. In terms of respecting or empathizing with the enemy, as Hillary put it the other day,